Small budget, no problem. Welcome to Meals with Maria. There is nothing worse than making a list and then looking at your meal plan, adding up all those ingredients and realizing how expensive it's going to be. Today, I have 10 small budget meals for you. These are simple, delicious, low ingredient, and are not gonna break the bank on your list and meal plan. You're gonna love them.
So the first thing I'm going to make were these Mexican stuffed peppers, and oh my goodness, they're so good. So I had a bag of red peppers that I had bought a couple weeks ago, and that was pretty much what I had left for fresh produce in my fridge. Everything still looked good, so I thought, all right, let's look in the cabinet and see what we have. So I definitely always have rice on hand. So here I'm just making up my rice according to the package. I think it's like 45 minutes and a couple cups of water with that. I'll always leave a plain rice recipe below for you. And then I had 4 peppers, which is more than enough for dinner for us. So this was great because it actually lasted for dinner as well as lunch the next day. And I'm just slicing the peppers in half, and then I'm going to clean out the inside of the peppers. You want to make sure that there's no stems and no seeds left. Now you just want to take your destemmed and de-seeded peppers and place them into a casserole dish. And then I'm just putting about a tablespoon of olive oil over them. You really want to make sure that your peppers are appropriately kind of covered in oil because this will help them to cook, and season them with salt and pepper. We're then going to cook these in the oven at 425 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. And you want to make sure that they're well cooked and kind of blistered when they come out. So this will help the peppers to be fully cooked even kind of before you put the filling inside. Now, I missed this part of the recording, but in order to make the filling, you want to add 1 can of diced tomatoes, 1 can of black beans, 4 cloves of minced garlic, a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh cilantro, 1½ teaspoons of cumin, 1½ teaspoons of chili powder, and salt and pepper to taste. I was also lucky enough to have an onion on hand, so I cooked up 1 small onion on the stove just until it turned translucent. And this is gonna cook our onion all the way through. And then I'm taking my fully cooked rice. You can see that it's cooked pretty much perfectly here. And we're gonna add the onion as well as the rice once everything's cooled down to our bean and tomato mixture. And that's gonna be the filling for the inside of the peppers. I love stuffed peppers like this because as long as you have peppers on hand, some red, green, yellow, orange, whatever flavor or color, I guess I mean whatever color, on hand with some rice and some beans, you can pretty much make this happen. This is more of like a Mexican Southwestern flavor, but if you had some beef or sausage, you could mix this in and mix it in with some marinara and definitely make it into more of an Italian stuffed pepper. So it's worth it whatever way you want to do it. Always keep that in mind when you're shelf shopping and you're like, okay, what am I going to do with these peppers? They're going to go bad. You can make stuffed peppers if you have rice, beans, or meat. You're pretty much ready to go. So I'm just filling up my peppers, and then I'm going to top them with some shredded Mexican cheese, which I was lucky enough to have as well. You could use mozzarella for this too. I think it would still taste great. Whatever you have on hand, make it work. When you serve them, they taste great with sour cream on the side. And what I did was I actually made this ahead of time, so unfortunately I didn't get footage of us eating it, but I cooked it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes, and everybody loved it. And there was plenty of leftovers for the next day, which is even better because we got 2 meals out of 1 thing just from shelf shopping. We're gonna make black bean quesadillas, which are like the simplest things in the world. I love to just make sure I have some sort of wrap or tortilla in my fridge at all times. I happen to have these low carb wraps, but you could absolutely use any. You can get these 10-pack, and they think they're a whole wheat at the Dollar Tree for $1. Then some shredded cheese. Again, you can get sharp cheddar for $1 at the Dollar Tree. I got this big package, I think for around $2. I had some scallion whites that I had in my freezer. This is a great way to save scallions. If you have some and they're gonna go bad, you can just chop them all up at the same time, throw them in your freezer, and they work out great. And this big container of black beans, and you get this for around $1. I know you can get a big one at Aldi for $1 too. So imagine you spend $1, $2, $3, and you're way under $5, and you're gonna get some amazing black bean quesadillas. And then if you want to put some toppings on them, you know, clean out your fridge and see what you have. So I happen to have some cilantro, which I know is a little bit more. That's an added bonus to that. I happen to have these guacamole things that are going to go bad. So I'm going to give each person at the table one, because why not? And you can get these on clearance a lot of times, like if you have a local grocery store.
I just want to pop in here and say that this is a compilation video, so some of these prices are old. Also, in some of these videos, I'm pregnant. I now have a 1.5-year-old, so not currently pregnant, but just so that you know, some of the prices may have unfortunately increased, like Dollar Tree is now $1.25, and some of the Aldi prices has also gone up. But good news is I am seeing things go down these days, so I have hope for the future.
These like little packages tend to go on clearance, and you can freeze them as well. And then I'm going to use non-fat Greek yogurt today, but for 89 cents at Aldi you can get sour cream, so that's great. I don't think I brought over my hot sauce, but whatever you got, hot sauce, salsa, again, if you're spending $3 here, then I know, and then some scallions, maybe 4, I know that at Aldi you can get for around $1 like a huge can of salsa. So, you know, choose how you want to do that or what you have for sides. And then for mine, so kids are probably just gonna have cheese because they're picky. And I'll do one for my husband with black beans. And then I happen to have some spinach. If you have frozen spinach, that works too. And I'm just gonna throw that in mine for a little bit of extra veggies. And that is it. So, like I said, you know, half this, it can be $3. You can just do black beans and cheddar and this, and you're great. You want to add some scallions, that's even better. You want to add some toppings, go for it. I also had a thing, and I'm not going to use them because I've just been kind of sensitive to spice lately in my pregnancy, but pickled jalapenos, you can get those at the Dollar Tree for $1. So you can make these really inexpensive and kind of make them what you want to be for so cheap. So for my quesadillas, I love to use a fat to cook my quesadilla in. So I'm using like even less than a tablespoon of butter, and I think that is just absolutely delicious. But you can 100% use some cooking spray or just regular vegetable oil or margarine, kind of whatever you have. Or if you like to just do like a toasted method, you could actually throw these in the oven and go with no oil, and I don't think they taste as good, but you absolutely don't have to use it. So you can just see that I took my frozen scallion whites, put those in the pan. This is over a medium heat. And then some of the black beans, I rinsed and drained those. And then I'm using taco seasoning. So you can get taco seasoning at the Dollar Tree. I like to keep it on hand so that I can just shake it onto whatever I want to cook with it. You can make taco seasoning. I'll make sure to put a taco seasoning recipe down below for you in the description box if you want to make your own. And just, you know, do whatever you want with it. You can take any sort of spices that you have in your cabinet that you like and kind of put those on there. So I'm just sauteing those up, and I'm going to put them in the bowl off to the side. And next I'm going to get started on my spinach. So I'm just going to take the same pan. You don't even have to clean it out or anything, and throw the spinach in there. Like I said, I like the spinach, so go for it if you have some. You could even use frozen spinach, and just make sure you drain it. You really don't want it to be like too wet. And so I just want my spinach to get a little bit wilted, because by the time I put it in the quesadilla, it's not going to be enough time for it to really wilt. And so once that is cooked up, I set that aside as well, and put a little bit more butter in the pan. Like I said, love my butter. And then place down a tortilla. So on that tortilla, you put what you like. We'll get started by putting some cheddar cheese down, and then just make sure that you're covering your whole tortilla. I mean, personally, I like mine extra cheesy. If you want to go lighter on the cheese, go for it. The cheese really is what helps it stick together, though. So this is just the kids' quesadilla. You can see that it's just a plain cheese. And it's funny because I was worried about, oh, is that going to be, you know, it's not really like a health food, right? But I did serve it with guacamole and with Greek yogurt. So I'm like, oh, they're getting protein from their cheese and their Greek yogurt. And then guacamole is like a vegetable, right? Or a healthy fat, I guess. So maybe not like crazy on the veggies this time, but I felt good about what I was serving in the long run. So here I'm just going to make up my husband's quesadilla. So we've got some cheddar cheese on the bottom and some of these beans. And you can see I didn't even use close to that whole can of black beans. So you can use a smaller can, and the great thing is you have some black beans left over that are great to use in like a taco bowl or in soup, anything in tacos themselves, anything that you would need to have during the week. And so you can see I just put a little bit of cilantro on top there, and then a little bit more cheese, and I like that because it helps make the tortilla stick to the other side, because once I put the cheese on the bottom and then I put the beans, Then I want to put a little bit more cheese so that it all sticks together and kind of is more cohesive. So just cooking that up on both sides, still working on a medium heat here. And you can see how it just like turns brown, and that's like so crispy, like so delicious. So here is mine, and the only thing I'm going to do differently than I did with the other two is now I'm going to add my spinach in. So my husband says that quesadillas are the perfect food because I think it's like you could eat them with your hands and you can put all your favorite things in them, and I forget, I have to ask him exactly why. I'm going to butcher it, and then he's going to be like, that's not why. Quesadillas are my favorite food, or the perfect food. I think it's just because it's easy to eat. But either way, it's a big hit in our household. I loved the way that this quesadilla looked. I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. Like, see that cilantro on there with the black beans? Like, it just was so pretty. And then I kind of ruined it by putting this cheese over it. I'm like, oh, it doesn't look as good anymore. And then I'm like, oh, let's get a, sneak peek close up, and not as pretty with the cheese on top, but still beautiful in its own light, right? And so once everything was cooked up, I just want to slice up these quesadillas. So my husband and I each had one, and then the kids just split one because they're just not big eaters all the time. But I love to use my pizza cutter, which is also a Dollar Tree item, to cut these up. And yeah, this is how I serve them. So nothing fancy tonight for dinner. This is just, it is what it is. But this is a very inexpensive dinner, and you can make it your own. I kind of love that about it. Everyone can have something different, and it's really not a pain to make. Like I said, if you don't want to cook them on the pan, on the stovetop, you can 100% cook them in the oven. Overall, quesadillas are very versatile. We have a Mexican pizza coming up, and just went through the cabinets. This is an amazing, mishmash, throw everything together, use what you have kind of meal. So I have some leftover flour tortillas. I always keep these on hand. I get them at the Dollar Tree. These ones specifically are from Aldi, but whatever you have, get some tortillas. Make sure you always have them. I keep them in the fridge, and they last forever. And so, yeah, Dollar Tree sells 12 pack for $1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put refried beans, again, super cheap. And I had those in my cabinet. So if you have refried beans and you have tortillas and you have cheese, you're pretty much good. The recipe that I have, and I'll put down in the description box, calls for ground beef. I don't have ground beef. Whatever, we're going to do vegetarian style. Refried beans should be just fine. So we're going to put some tortillas, a tortilla down. We're going to put refried beans in the middle. And then I'm going to shred this cheese up. I'm going to put that over the top. Now, probably on Dan's and probably on mine, I'm going to put this chipotle salsa, because this is what I found in my cabinet. But it's hot, and the kids are not going to be down with that. So I'm not going to put any salsa on theirs. And then I'm going to slice up just what I have, the rest of these tomatoes, put that on top of the cheese. And then jalapeno slices, that can go on ours if I want. I might even put these on the side. Scallions, I'll put these over at the end. I'm going to slice up some of this avocado and put this in a little bowl so that you can sprinkle it over your pizza. Same thing with what's left of this cilantro here. I'm just going to slice it up, put it in a little bowl, and then you can sprinkle it over the top. And I have some sour cream too. So a lot of this stuff is okay, I found this. I'm using scallions, but you could totally use red onion if you want to slice that up. If you have mild salsa, I wish I did. Silly that I don't. It's on my list. I need to have that in the closet at all times, and it's cheap too. But make it your own. And yeah, if you have meat, put it in there. You could even use if you had pulled pork left over, or some barbacoa. A lot of times I'll make a roast and put it in the freezer, and then I have this leftover shredded meat. That would go great in a Mexican pizza like this. So let's make them up.
These ended up being delicious. They're a huge hit with kids and they're super pantry friendly. So anytime you're just like kind of wondering what to do with what's left in your fridge, these are an excellent option. For this next one, we're making a chicken and broccoli bubble up bake, so low ingredient and so delicious.
For this dinner, I kind of already got everything started, but it's 3 ingredients, so it's going to be so simple, and I'm super excited about it. So we've got flaky biscuits. I got these at Aldi for like 80-something cents. They're so cheap. This also Aldi steamed broccoli, a little over $1. I already cooked it up in the microwave, so just follow the instructions. It ain't pretty, but it'll do. Over here, I have like a pound, maybe 1.5 pounds of chicken that I am just crisping up. I put a little bit of salt and pepper on it. So now to bring everything together, we're just going to take the chicken that is fully cooked through and browned on the outside and mix it together with the broccoli. And this is as simple as can be. Once it's fully mixed, just set it aside and open up your biscuits. And then you want to slice your biscuits into quarters. And this again is super easy. I just opened them up and broke them into 2 kind of towers and then sliced 4 ways. I mean, you could tear them apart with your fingers too if you want. It's really not a big deal. There's really no perfect way to do this. So then you do want to spray your pan, and I have about like a 9x13 here, and I will tell you that I did this wrong. I did this backwards. What you should do is you should put your biscuits in first and then pour your chicken and broccoli and cheese sauce over the biscuits. And for some reason, I just wasn't reading the recipe and paying attention, so I put the biscuits on top. But before I put it in the oven, I did correct this. So I kind of went through and I ended up switching everything around and putting the biscuits on the bottom. So my recommendation is place your biscuits in the bottom of the pan, the same way that I'm doing it right now. There's no like fancy way to do this. It's not gonna look beautiful. But just put them in the bottom of the pan and then pour your chicken and broccoli cheese sauce on top of it, and you're going to be even in better shape because you don't have to go back and do it like I did. Although this would probably end up pretty cool. I mean, I didn't want to risk it because I wanted the recipe to be, right and test it out first. But I think it would be more like a pot pie type thing versus like a full like bready casserole. So yeah, this is what everything looks like when it's completely backwards. So imagine it completely upside down, and so much better that way. I just want to bake this at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. Now I took mine out at 25 minutes and I decided to sprinkle some cheddar cheese on top. So I did add an additional ingredient, and this does add some cost, but threw it in there for 5 more minutes. It was perfectly cooked. So I really recommend the 30-minute mark for the fully cooked casserole. In the next recipe, I'm making a lemon chicken with potatoes. Now, the recipe is from Pillsbury.com, which I absolutely love. If you can use like a Pillsbury recipe or a Betty Crocker recipe, because I just feel like they're tested, tried and true, and they're usually low ingredient. So I'm just using the potatoes that I had on hand. So I had some of these like little small multicolored potatoes, and they had honestly started to go a little bit. So I was just cutting out the little pieces that were like the little eyes on there. I mean, I'm just going to go with what I have. They're totally fine. They tasted delicious. So if you need to cut the eyes out of your potatoes, don't stress. Just do it. It's not a problem. Or buy new potatoes. Not a big deal either. They're very inexpensive. So this is why this is a $5 dinner, because you can get like a couple of russet potatoes or red potatoes for probably $1, maybe $2 at max. And you can get those really, really cheap. Or you can buy a 10-pound bag for $5 at Aldi. And at that point, you're just paying 50 cents for a pound of potatoes. So yes, the recipe calls for 1 pound of red potatoes, but use what you have. The next ingredient is 1/2 of a medium yellow onion diced. And I happen to have this large Vidalia or sweet onion. So I'm going to use maybe like 1/4 of it and just dice that up. Now, if you don't have an onion or you don't want to spend the money on it, like an onion is usually between 69 cents to $1 maximum. And if you don't have that, go ahead and just use onion powder with this, and I'm sure it would taste delicious. So just because I had the onion on hand, I'm using it, and I'm using about 1/4 of it. So like 20 cents for this onion. And the next thing I'm going to put in here is 1 lemon. So again, a lemon runs like 50 cents. And if you could see that I was rolling it, I find that if you roll the lemon, it's kind of a trick to make sure that the lemon gets really juicy and you get the juices out of it. So I just wanted to make sure that my lemon was super juicy so that when I put it on top of my chicken and my potatoes, that all the flavor came out. So I'm just slicing this into rounds, and I'm going to end up putting this over my chicken and potatoes, and it was absolutely delicious. Now I'm going to microwave 2 tablespoons of butter, or if you want, you could heat this up in a pan. I'm sure you could use margarine or oil, whatever you have. I just happen to have butter. Now to the melted butter, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of packed brown sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, I'm kind of assuming that you have these things on hand, but I bet you could be pretty flexible with this recipe. Like when I'm thinking about brown sugar, I bet you could use maple syrup or potentially some honey on this, and it would still taste delicious. And as far as Italian seasonings, I mean, go ahead and put whatever your favorite seasoning is on there, or if you like a seasoned salt, I bet that would taste really good too. I think the key is you just want that salty sweet flavor, and it was honestly so good. So now that I've prepped everything, I'm pulling out my chicken, and I was able to get chicken for $1.69 a pound. So I'm just going to open this package up. This is like a family size package, and I'm going to use 5 of these boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And the total on that is going to come to about $2.60, which is very reasonable for chicken. If you're a larger family, the amount of sauce that I've made and even the amount of potatoes there are going to be plenty if you use all of the chicken. So it would definitely put you over the $5 mark, but it'd still be a very inexpensive and healthy meal for your family. So now that I'm watching this, I don't know why I chose a paper plate to do this on, but I just wanted something easy that I guess I didn't have to do dishes because my dishwasher is still not hooked up. But I'm just putting the glaze over one side of the chicken, and I'm going to place that onto a hot pan, and then I'll put the glaze on the other side of the chicken. So I'm going to put it glaze side down. Now I'm going to cook these over medium-high heat for about 3 to 4 minutes so that each side is nice and cooked up and a little bit crispier. And I've also preheated my oven to 400 degrees because we are going to pop these in the oven after. So even though I'm cooking these in the pan, I just want the outsides to get seared. I'm not trying to cook them all the way through. And then, like I said, I'm going to put the rest of the glaze on the other side of the chicken. I'll flip them in just a couple minutes and make sure that everything's seared and the flavor is really getting incorporated into the chicken. Now that my chicken's seared, I believe the recipe calls for like an 8x10 casserole dish. This is just what I had on hand. So I'm placing all of my boneless, skinless chicken thighs into my dish. And then you'll see in the bottom of the pan, there is all sorts of delicious glaze and juices there. And I'm not going to miss a minute of that. Pour that right over your chicken. Do not be afraid. That is where all the flavor is and all the deliciousness. Then you just want to pour all of your sliced up potatoes on top, as well as your onions and your delicious, juicy lemons. At this point, the recipe calls for pouring another tablespoon of butter over the top, so I just used my pan that I already had to get even more of the herbs and that flavor off there and just poured it right over my chicken and potatoes and lemon. And we're just ending with a sprinkle of salt and pepper to finish this off before it goes in the oven. I really just love the way this looked. My husband was right. It did look like a fancy dinner. And this is something that's great just for a regular family dinner because it didn't really take very long to put together. And then once you put it in the oven, it's like set it and forget it. You could probably make this ahead of time and then put it in there. And this is what everything looks like when it comes out. I cooked mine for 30 minutes. If you have larger potatoes, you can go for 40 minutes at 400 degrees. And it was so delicious. This could be good for a crowd or for your family. Now this recipe is basically a KFC bowl casserole. I saw something similar on Pinterest and I wanted to recreate it. I'm just using the Idahoan potatoes that you just add water to. And I was just looking at the back there, there's 4 servings in this, so it really was the perfect size for a family of 4. If you want to feed more, you may want to get a few more mashed potatoes and chicken. And then 1 can of corn. I go with the Green Giant now because I really don't like the Dollar Tree brand. 1 packet of brown gravy mix. It actually comes with 3 in there. 1 of these 4-ounce containers of mild cheddar, and this is real cheddar cheese, so don't buy the shreds. It's important to buy the one that you shred on your own. And then 1 package of these chicken strips. Now this casserole is super easy. We're just going to follow the instructions on the back of the chicken, heat that up. Going to do the same with our mashed potatoes and our gravy. And then I'm just going to layer everything into a casserole dish and pop in the oven at 350 degrees for about 5 to 10 minutes. You really just want to melt the cheese at that point because everything will still be warm. This casserole could also be an amazing make ahead casserole, or great for meal prep because you could actually just put it into individual bowls and then have it the next day for lunch.
This is one of those casseroles that is super pantry friendly. So whether you're using Dollar Tree ingredients or not, I usually have these things on hand anyway. You don't have to use the chicken tenders. I often have chicken nuggets or like popcorn chicken or something like that on hand. That is perfect for a dish like this as well. You can use frozen corn. You can use whatever you have on hand. I always keep those potatoes, you know, like the reconstituted or I always call them potato buds because that's what I grew up with, but on hand. So it's easy to make in a pinch and super delicious and family friendly. Kids love it. For these next few recipes, I'm working with chicken leg quarters and like a big bag of them from Walmart. And I'm making a chicken and rice soup to start. And then we're going to make 2 other meals with them too.
I'm just going to chop up this red onion. Red onion just ended up being cheaper than yellow onion, so that's why I bought it. And then to make the stock or broth, I always forget which one's which, but it's still going to be flavorful, whatever it is. I'm going to put half of the whole onion right into the stock pot, along with 4 of the chicken leg quarters. And then to the chicken, I'm just going to add a sprinkle of parsley, thyme, rosemary, and a couple of bay leaves. And then we're going to pour water on this to cover. You want to bring that to a boil over medium-high heat, then reduce the heat and bring down to a simmer and cook for about an hour. Then you can just remove the chicken off to the side because we're going to actually use that to make the soup with. And after an hour, it really does end up really tender and delicious with lots of flavor. It may seem crazy, but I like to use a knife for this because it just kind of stabs into the chicken and pulls the chicken out super easy. Comment below and give this video a like if you're also like, yes, I would use a knife. Now you just want to skim off all of the fat on the top there. Leaving that skin on the chicken definitely adds to the fat content in this, but I think it gives it a lot of flavor, so it's kind of your choice. You can pull the skin off if you'd rather cook it without it and not deal with all the fat on there, but I just kind of skim it off with a spoon. Another alternative is to use a gravy separator. That works great for this too. And then once the fat is skimmed off, you do want to pour this through a strainer to strain out all of the solids. There's going to be, you know, this and that in there, and just really want to clear it out as much as you can. Now for the soup, just grab a soup pot and add a little bit of oil to the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to add that half of a diced red onion in there and cook for about 5 to 6 minutes. Then you want to add about 8 cups of broth. I ended up with the perfect amount. I had 4 cups for the rice and 8 cups for the soup. And then 2 cloves of garlic peeled, 1 cup of rice. And then I'm just going to shred up this chicken kind of while that's getting started in the pot. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but bone-in chicken like this adds so much flavor. It is so delicious. So just take your time. You can see there's a lot of steam coming off, but it was kind of cool enough. I had ways that I can I'm just pulling it off with my hands because it's just really falling off the bone at this point. I also feel like you could make an entire 4th meal out of this. Maybe not from the rest of the stuff, but from the chicken. You really only needed like 2 of these to add to the chicken soup because it was so hearty and so thick. It ended up being like mostly chicken and rice, which I really like. I like a nice thick soup like that, but you could have actually used about half of the chicken that I put in the soup and used it for something different. Then I'm just adding my chicken to the soup and about half of the can of vegetables. I'm going to use half of them in my rice dish, and then I'm going to use half of them in the soup. Make sure to add salt and pepper to taste and any other seasonings you might like. Soup is kind of like that. Just make it your own, whatever you like in it. Give it that flavor. If you have some lemon, go ahead and squeeze that in too. It is so good in a chicken and rice soup. And you want to cook it kind of in total from when you put the rice in for about 20 minutes. And then we're going to pull out those 2 whole cloves of garlic and I'm just going to mash those up into a paste. And you're going to take that paste and add it back to the soup. And this just gives the soup so much flavor. And you'll find that the soup ends up being kind of like cloudy because it has this mashed up garlic in it. But it actually makes it kind of almost seem like a creamy soup. And it's absolutely delicious. This is such a great way to use such an inexpensive ingredient to add tons of flavor. The next dish is going to be a roasted chicken with a vegetable rice. We're just going to start off by trimming the chicken, any excess fat that you don't want to put on there. If you are in need of the calories or you just like the fat, leave it on there. Do whatever works for you. And then we're going to pat those dry. and season them generously with salt and pepper. Pour about a tablespoon or two of oil into the bottom of an oven-safe pan, then heat to medium heat. You want to add your chicken skin side down and cook until crispy, about 5 minutes. Add all but 2 of your peeled garlic cloves to the pan and sprinkle with dried or fresh rosemary. We're going to bake this at 350 degrees for about 35 minutes. Once you take it out, your chicken is going to be so juicy and delicious, and we're going to make an amazing sauce out of this garlic and chicken juices. You do also want to make rice during this time. My timing is a little bit messed up, but you can kind of figure it out. You want to do 1 tablespoon of oil over medium heat in a saucepan. Once warm, add 2 cups of rice, and then we're going to kind of toast up that rice for just a few minutes. You want to make sure that your rice is nice and toasty. And while that cooks, I'm going to dice up or mince up 2 cloves of garlic. Those are the remaining cloves of garlic, and we're going to add that right to the rice, as well as the other half of the can of vegetables and 4 cups of the chicken stock. Add 1 teaspoon of salt, a sprinkle of pepper, and bring this up to a boil. Then you want to reduce your heat to low and cover it and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Then you want to leave that cover on and cook and take it off the heat and let it sit for another 10 minutes. Then you can fluff it with a fork, and it is so flavorful and delicious. We made an amazing rice to go with our chicken for pennies on the dollar. So back to the sauce for the chicken. Once the chicken comes out, you want to set it aside and then put your pan over a medium-high heat and bring that like stock stuff up to a boil, and then you're going to add in 2 teaspoons of white wine vinegar. And when you do this, it's really going to kind of bring everything together. It's going to emulsify. It's going to pull the brown bits off the bottom, and it makes an amazing flavored garlic sauce. And you just want to pour that right over your chicken. Put the chicken kind of right on top of the rice. And this is, like I said, this could be considered kind of a gourmet dish, and it's so inexpensive. You could have also easily used another chicken quarter here instead of putting it in the soup. And that would have helped if you have like a family of 4 or maybe 5 and you kind of split them. For my family, 3 was perfect for us. The next dish is going to be the macaroni shells with the broccoli and chicken. I just roasted up the chicken again at 350 degrees for 35 minutes with a little salt and pepper. That is so simple. That is all I did to get this. And then I'm just going to shred my chicken while I'm making my mac and cheese, just according to the package instructions. If you don't have milk and butter, because we didn't buy that, you can always just use a little bit of the pasta water. I've heard that works quite well. I've gotten a lot of recommendations to do that, so that will work for you if you need it to. I simply microwave the broccoli according to the package instructions, drained that out and poured that in, as well as the chicken. You mix this up. Go ahead and add salt and pepper to taste, seasoned salt if you like, maybe even a little bit of garlic powder. And this is absolutely fantastic. I just added a little bit of seasoned salt that I like, the Auntie No-No's, really, really good stuff. And it was fantastic. Kids loved it, adults loved it, and it's just a simple meal. It kind of reminds me of like a hamburger helper, like a chicken helper, but even cheaper. The next recipe I'm making is like a cheeseburger mac casserole, and I think it kind of tasted like a taco mac and cheese with some meat, I guess. So we're using some taco seasoning from Aldi for 38 cents. I'm using this ground turkey from Walmart that I get for $1.68. I have a can of diced tomatoes. I bought those at the Dollar Tree for $1, but I know you can get them for like 50 cents at Aldi. And then I happen to have Spiral Kraft macaroni and cheese. I think that's like $1, but I know you can get the Aldi brand for 34 cents and it would taste delicious in this. So this is so inexpensive. So the first thing I'm going to do is cook up my macaroni for my macaroni and cheese. And then I am so sorry, guys. I thought I was recording and I wasn't. So I need to tell you about what I did here. I cooked up my ground turkey over, medium-high heat, just like I would do for a taco skillet. Cooked it all the way through. Then I poured in my packet from my macaroni and cheese, as well as my taco seasoning and my diced tomatoes. At this point, my spiral mac was finished. It took 7 minutes. So in the time that it took for me to boil the water and cook the macaroni and cheese, which was a little over, probably 10 minutes because I had to wait for the water to boil, I was able to basically make this entire meal, because by the time that the macaroni was ready, everything else was ready too, which was just great. And I ended up using that Italian ground turkey from Walmart because that's what I had in my freezer, and that tasted delicious. I think you could use regular ground turkey. You can use ground beef. You could use whatever you had on hand. I bet it would taste really, really good with some Italian sausage. So any of those things will do. This is one of those meals that you can kind of mess around with, add, take away, just do whatever your heart desires. So it really, really turned out great. I was like, guys, to my kids, I'm like, this is a taco in a bowl. Basically, it's a taco pasta. It's going to be delicious. And it just turned out so cool. And I just loved how you put that. You just put like that macaroni and cheese packet in there. And I'm like, yeah, it's cheesy. Like it's like nacho cheesy. And you taste your taco seasoning. And overall, it was just so, so good. So I was always, because this is a $5 dinner, I ate it. I tried it as it was. It was delicious. I mean, if you don't have any toppings for it, don't even bother. Not a big deal. But you can also put some shredded cheese on top of it, or you can put some sour cream. I ended up using like some Greek yogurt because that's what I had, and it was amazing. So put whatever toppings you want on there, maybe some cilantro, some jalapenos, have at it. This was so good.
I want to thank you so much for watching today. I hope you got some great ideas. If you're looking for more crazy cheap dinners, click on this next video and make sure the next time you're on YouTube, you're watching Meals with Maria.